Hello.
We
We're
made it
back. Hi.
Hey, how you
Oh
doing?
shit. I like that.
Hi.
My favorite openings are those kind of openings. The
Where's
cold
the
ones.
feelings wheel? We're unprepared.
No, we're not.
No,
Oh,
we're
you
not.
have it?
Yes,
Always
have no
prepared.
fear. The feelings wheel.
It's here.
Here.
Thank you, Savon.
Yes, indeed.
Thanks, Young King.
Do it.
We are back with another episode. We hope y'all are well. Wish you could talk back sometimes. I'd love to hear from you. We have to figure out and incorporate that in.
I
I
would
have
love that.
some ideas, but I want to hear from the folks.
There's a way like we could do like voicemails or like live calling.
Micro stresses.
Don't say voicemails as though that's your idea, okay?
I didn't.
Um,
You said I would love to do it, and I just gave you a
he
suggestion.
offered up that suggestion like he came up with it. Don't play with me, Savon.
But you didn't say it.
I don't think that was about you. She's triggered. That
It had
triggered
to
her.
be because, like, why wouldn't
Somebody
you just
co-opted some ideas she had at work. She ready to
Listen.
scrap.
No, I'm glad I have this wheel first. I am in the goofiest mood, and I need to not be based off the topic that we're about to bring up.
Heavy topic.
But I am in such a silly mood. I'm giddy. I'm just so happy to be back with y'all.
You are also Antoinette,
My name is Antoinette.
and I'm Savon.
You say your name different all the time.
I know. You just
It's-
never know what you're gonna get.
I respect it. Is it like an alter ego? Like depending on how you pronounce it?
No,
Is it
it's that my parents said it differently.
okay. And I'm Josh.
This intro is wild. But hopefully, you good people have been listening for a while and you know who we are. You understand our little idiosyncrasies. And you know that we don't get to see each other a lot. So when we do get to see each other, we're happy to play,
Yes.
dig deep, and discover. So hopefully we'll do that today. But I am feeling giddy. I am feeling goofy. I'm feeling relaxed. I'm feeling nourished and grateful.
Ice cream will do that to you.
Listen, we just got some ice cream, y'all, from the ice cream man. It was good.
It was alright.
It was,
It
yeah.
was-
I lied. That
The
was not
experience.
right.
It was
about
the
honesty.
experience of the ice cream
The
that
ice
was nice.
cream just was
Mid.
subpar at best.
I've never had mid ice cream until
It was
today.
mid.
Yeah,
It
it
was
was mid
mid
ice
ice
cream. It was. Like it was just
There.
all dairy, no sugar.
Yeah.
All right, what am I feeling? I'm feeling optimistic.
All right.
I'm feeling trusting because of the topic today. Like I need to make sure I trust you guys to be vulnerable, and I feel grateful.
I like that. How do I feel? I feel extremely so prior to turning the mics on, we were in a good mood because we had the ice cream. But knowing what we're about to talk about, I'm a little confused
Oh.
because the topic is very heavy, but I don't have much experience in this department.
Mm.
And so whenever I have these conversations with folks, I'm always indifferent. So maybe I feel indifferent because it's sensitive, but it's hard to talk through something so devastating or so permanent that I've never been through. So yeah, I'm a little indifferent, and I hope to see you guys on the other side.
That was ominous. That was-
Well, Savon's saying that because, and I don't mean for this topic to be heavy. I don't even know that it needs to be. I actually think that it's going to be, my hope is that the topic will be very inspiring. I recently experienced a loss. Someone close to me passed away. And then, I'm at an age where a lot of like my elders are getting older. They're having health problems, family members. My grandmother is, God bless her, 92 and still kicking and a feisty little thing. But, in a position where she can no longer care for herself. And I visited her and had a lot of conversations with her where, and just having conversations with a lot of elders where they reflect on their lives rather, of course. And it's interesting how varying it is, how some people can be at such peace while others feel like there's so many stones that were left unturned,
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that was really shook me up, and it made me reflect on certain things. But the woman that passed away was basically the mom of my friend group. And she's been in my life since I was 14. She played a really important role in my life, where she's definitely called me and treated me like a second daughter, and came into my life at a very pivotal time when my family was falling apart. So she is a pillar, you know. She was sick. She had cancer. She had beaten it, came back. And she was still very much fighting. But then when we got the news, it was very interesting to we got news that basically she was going to only have maybe a couple days left. So everybody rushes home, you know. And when I got there, someone told me, like, don't say anything. We're not telling her because we don't want her to accept that as her fate. We want her to keep fighting. She wants to stay here. And I was like, oh. It was shocking to me. So we're talking to her with this information. And so she's telling us about all the plans she has for her life, where she wants to go with her husband, what she's going to do. And it was just like, oh my God. Oh my God. I don't have the language for it now. But her family, and I understand their rationale behind it. They know her best, and she had expressed she doesn't want to know no shit like that, because she is rooted in faith, and she's gonna continue to be rooted in her faith. She ended up transitioning in the arms of the people that she loves at home. It was really beautiful to see her move forward to the next iteration of whatever that is, in a way that was like, it felt almost ceremonious. It almost felt like, wow, like, how else do you want to go? You're literally in your bed with your husband, with all your kids. All the rest of your extended loved ones, including us, are in your backyard waiting, just there. But she had a lot of things to say to me in terms of what she wanted for me and what she saw for my life. And it had great impact on me. And so I sat back, and I have a friend, my friend Black, and he's very much, his relationship to death, with death rather, is very much like, he knows it's going to come. He doesn't fight it. It's just, and so it's just this is something that happens in life. He's accepted it, right? But he lives his life with it in the back of his head, knowing that it could happen at any moment. And that sounds ominous, but it forces him and helps him make sure that his time is spent doing the things that he wants to do. And that he always will say, thank you for your time. If I were to go right now, I would feel I wouldn't have regrets about how I spent the last few minutes of my life or hour or whatever. And he was like, if I'm ever in any space where I would have regrets, that's not the space I belong in. It's a waste of time. And time is the most valuable currency. And so I was faced with that, and I asked myself, like, yo, if you were to go tomorrow, would you be fulfilled with how you're spending your time today? And the answer kept me up at night, if I'm being completely honest. The answer rocked me of like, no. I would have so many regrets. I would not be at peace with my transitioning, and I would have felt like I didn't live out my purpose. Just based off of where I give most of my energy to, how I feel throughout the day in life is not how I want the rest of my life to feel. So it forced me to say to myself, what are the steps you have to take, right? So all that, long-winded, right? We're going to backtrack a little bit. But first I want to know, like, what is your relationship with death, with end of life for yourself, for people around you? What do you think about it? How do you think about it? And are you afraid of it? Have you accepted it as the inevitable?
Mm.
And then I'd like to know if what has death taught you about life? Okay.
Two really deep questions. And to answer the first one, which was you just wanted to know
What's your
how.
relationship with death?
So again, I've been very honest and vocal and blessed, lucky to not really have it hit too close to home. You know, there was a point last season where we recorded where there was a kid that I had went to high school with, and he was a little bit younger than myself, and he had passed away, and just by association, it kind of you know affected me, not because he and I were the closest of friends, but at some point we were friends, and mutual friends, and just following each other on Instagram, you
Mm-hmm.
kind of keep up with people's lives, and you see that they have children, and so the fact that it's final is one of the only things that's guaranteed in this life, and it's one of the only things that you can't undo, like it's there. So I think that really threw me for a loop when that had happened to somebody in such close proximity. um but again, I have been super blessed and fortunate that I haven't dealt with that with anybody too close just yet. And so for me to try to give you an accurate answer, I wouldn't be able to, because I
What
don't
about
think
your own death?
my own death. Am I afraid of it was one of the things you asked, and I don't think I'm afraid of it, because I understand we all got a time, you know. I feel like at this very moment, I'm walking in my purpose.
Mm.
I feel like I have lived the life that to the best of my ability, right? With the lemons that I was given, I've made some pretty damn good lemonade at this point.
Yeah.
So I'm comfortable in that. I think the one thing that I would be afraid of, and maybe again, this is something to do with being naive or just age, maybe, but I'm afraid of like the way that I'm gonna go. I hope it's not painful. And the first thing that comes to mind right now, there was two things. The first thing was Kobe Bryant. I think that is one of the more miserable ways and tragic ways of hearing someone dying, right? Like such a helpless way. And so I think about how is what would scare me more than the fact of it happening, because it's going to happen. But just being in that mindset of being with your daughter or someone you love, somebody who views you as a protector, and not being able to protect them or yourself. And who knows if they passed on impact, or if they passed while it's just so many things to kind of consider in that moment. And then when I was a little bit younger, I had another friend of mine that I went to high school with. He passed away, and it's speculated that he got into a car accident. He didn't pass away from the impact, but he was trapped, and the car burst into flames, and it's pretty tragic. He
Mm.
burned him alive, basically. And so I'm more afraid and more concerned about the how of the transition will happen, opposed to it actually happening. Because I believe, I know it's going to happen at some point. And as long as I made the people in my life feel good, and I did the best I could while I was here, I think I'm okay with that.
That is interesting for me because I had such a different point of view of it when I was younger than I do now. I think growing up, death for me was like I felt flippant about it. I was like, "Oh, you're gonna die one way or another." Like I don't think about it. It's so
Mm-hmm.
far away. It's this idea that like you only hear about in old people and people that were in tragic situations. Then as I started to grow up, more and more people around me started to die. My age, my best friend died of an overdose. And then I came face to face with his body, you
Mm.
know, and, um, and not at the funeral. I mean, like still when he was on the bedroom floor in his home. Then my aunt died. She was she died in like in the hallway of the projects I grew up in. And then my great grandma died. She died of old age, but I was there, like, during her last breaths.
Mm-hmm.
That was like a core memory for me because I remember like like seeing that, not to be graphic, but
Yeah.
it's just something that's burned into my memory. So like my relationship with death has turned into something, I want to say, really intimate.
Mm.
And it's not about now having children.
Mm.
My death isn't about me anymore.
Mm.
My death has become about what do I leave. And it's funny. Yesterday, I was driving. Me and my fiance had like a little date night. Went to a game night for a friend's birthday, and we were driving. I just had this intrusive thought. I was like, "What if we got into a car accident, and then our kids have no parents,
Mm.
and then they have to be raised by, our parents?" I started to think about that. I'm like, I really got to be responsible with my life
Mm.
because I don't live for me anymore. I live for these two human beings who depend on me to keep them alive and to keep them nurtured and fed and loved. So death for me is a responsibility that I do it at the time where it would matter the least, but the most.
Mm-hmm.
So matter the least in terms of the impact I leave on someone in my ripple, but matter the most that I'll be missed because of the what I provided. So that like when I think about death, I think about it as a responsibility as best as I can control it. Take care of my body, take care of my mental health, take care of the people around me, be kind, love everybody as best as I can, as much as they deserve, love myself as much as I can, as much as I deserve, so that when that day inevitably comes in whatever way it does, I can be sure that whatever I leave in my wake is positive, and that has a net positive effect on the world around them, the people that I have touched before,
Mm-hmm.
because it's coming, it's inevitable. There's nothing you can do about it. All you can do is control the life you live up until that moment. And that moment could be any time. I have a very intimate relationship with the idea. I do think about it often. Yeah, that's my perspective.
I don't think I really thought about it for myself as much. I thought about it a lot for my parents and thinking about like I wonder if they'll be at peace when they go. I'll be in shambles, but I wonder if they'll be at peace. And I didn't start thinking about I might have toyed with it for myself a little bit when I had my own health scare. I had my own like cancer scare and was like, holy shit, this is like life is fragile and it can impact me at any moment. But I will say, sadly, I guess that I've occupied this earth pretty much feeling invincible in a way when it comes to death.
Mm-hmm.
Not even considering it.
Same.
Like the idea that I could go outside, we say it, but it does the language doesn't have the impact unless, in my opinion, unless it just something happens to you. Like what you've experienced, I think, forces you to face it in a different way,
Yeah.
to have this thing, this weight in your hand and to like feel it and to touch it and to hold it and observe it is different than hearing about it
Mm-hmm.
and knowing it as a wise tale. So every time I drive now, I'm grateful that I got home. Like little things like that. My friend Black, one of the reasons why he is the way he is that he had a terrible car accident. He was like skateboarding home and woke up underneath a car. Just woke
Wow.
up and was like, holy shit. And it dragged him for blocks.
Oh wow.
And so he was like this like fashion guy at the time and all this shit. Let me not, but like model guy, walking around with his Rolex and all this stuff. And he has this Rolex still that he keeps at his art studio. He's like a recluse now because he's like, none of this matters. And this Rolex is all messed up. Oh my God, the face is, but he keeps it there to remind him how valuable time is.
Mm.
And he was like, I put value on the Rolex, not the time that it was measuring.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it changed his life forever. And like, I'm not calling on anything like that to happen to me. I don't want it to, but I'm recognizing it and like trying to like hold this idea of death now. And I guess the things that it's teaching me, and I'm curious to know what it's taught you specifically, is like how I want to live my life before I go. But also I think there's a difference for me too because I don't have children. And so it feels like, well, if I did go, like yeah, there would be a ripple effect, but like what is the legacy? What is the thing
Yeah.
that I'm leaving here? And I know that I'd leave stuff outside of children, but I don't know that I'm not like you where I don't feel like I'm completely in my purpose.
Mhm.
So the idea of death is now a little bit terrifying, activating
Mhm.
of like, girl, you got to get in your purpose. Like
Yeah.
none of this is promised.
And when I mentioned like I'm in my purpose, I feel like I'm more so walking in what I believe in. Like, the sacrifices that I made when it came to work.
Mm-hmm.
When right out of college, I got offered to work at a sports network and making decent money at the time, and being able to say no to that to bet on myself, right? That's how I view myself walking in my purpose. Not
Absolutely.
that I've necessarily had this grand impact on the world and everything, but more so I've made decisions, selfish decisions that I believe align with my core, and I didn't sacrifice anything along this journey as of yet. From almost everything that I've done from a professional standpoint, at least. So that's what I mean by walking in my purpose. But I think one of the eerie things for me over the last however many years that social media has been around is coming across someone's page who is no longer here.
Mm-hmm.
That has been a mirror for me to almost accept, because before I used to feel like you, Antoinette, where you just don't think it can happen. Like you just
You
don't
don't
see.
consider it.
We have main character syndrome when it comes to ourselves,
Yeah.
as you should. This is your life, your body, your everything. I see through my lens, so I'm the main character in this story, but we're not. And when you accept that and you understand that and you see that and you realize, some of the strongest people that get sick, they get hurt, they bleed, they go through emotions, and sometimes they pass. When they do pass, it puts in the perspective like, oh, that could be me, And I think a lot of the reason, especially in the Black community, we don't go to the doctors is because we want to avoid whatever the complications or the sicknesses, diseases that could be living in our body, right? So outside of limited resources and access and insurance, a lot of us, and I can speak from experience and seeing firsthand, I don't want to know,
Oh, I
you
don't. I
know
want
and
to
I'm
know.
just speaking as a
Yeah, I get it.
overarching
Yeah.
theme. Like that's one of the things is we'll deal with it when we have no choice, but I don't want to mess up the flow because your body starts to change after a while. And like Josh said, when people are passing away and they're your age, when you're younger and you hear death, think of older
Yes,
folks.
of
You
course.
think of older people. Even when you're 6 years old, you see somebody that's 25, you're not thinking that's so young. As a child, 25 is younger than your grandma or your grandpa, but you're like, oh, wow,
Yeah,
that's
you don't have
an
the
adult, right?
perspective
You don't
on it.
have that perspective. But then when you become 25, or you become 21, or you become whatever it is, and people are passing and they're your age, and you remember going to middle school with them, you remember going to, having recess with them, you remember, some of the memories that you created with them. Like the kid that passed away this past year for me, I remember senior cut day. He was a year under me, and I was the senior, and it was me and some of my boys, and we kind of took them under our wing and said, "Yo, senior cut day, come fuck with us. We go drink. We looking for girls. We just running around."
Great mentorship.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I made sure, like, that, of course, leave my legacy. No. But I just remember that's a moment that we shared, and knowing he's gone and I see his daughter, and I actually ran into his child's mother in passing. And, I didn't think of him right in that moment. But then when I left her presence, I was like, wow, he left a piece of himself with her, with their child, and it really just kind of puts in perspective this thing called life. It
Mm.
really does. Yeah.
What about you? What has death taught you
Um,
about life?
I've had the unfortunate experience to be around death from a young age.
Yeah.
So like my lessons from death have changed as I've grown older. So like I remember when I was younger, one of my first experiences with death was my another aunt of mine, my aunt Diane. She had passed away from complications of. I remember hearing about that. And my aunt Diane was so kind to me, would like buy me cap guns and bring me to the store and get me any candy I wanted, and
Mm.
was always so sweet and giving. When I found that out, I remember thinking like, "Oh, that's just a person that was here and now was gone completely."
It's so final.
Yeah, and I remember
It's
having like
so final.
almost an existential crisis as a child. I remember I would cry. I cried, and my mom would be like, "Why are you crying?" I'm like, "Because I'm gonna die one day," you know. And then this is at like 5, 6. I remember these memories, and then experienced death again. One of my friends in high school killed himself, um, and when he did that, 3 other friends died in a year, and that's when I learned that death is contagious,
Mm.
especially amongst younger people, because you're dealing with like really unstable emotional people to begin with and teenagers. And when this particular person went and took their own life, um, he had a circle of friends that were much closer to him than I was, and each of those people then fell into that and thought maybe that is an escape from whatever it was that they were all collectively suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't help that at this point, like prescription pills were kind of running rampant in this particular group of people. So a lot of overdoses happened because of coping, self-medicating, abusing drugs. So in like a matter of a year, when I was around 14, 15, I had like 4 people that I knew closely die. So to answer your question without, going grossly into all the people that I've watched kind of come and go, death has taught me that you need to take this life that you have and be grateful for what it is. And that doesn't mean to be complacent. It means quite the opposite. It means to work really hard. It means to day by day not sweat the small things. It means to try to be as present as possible. To work towards something, but not make the work the life.
Mm.
And I know we like to make the joke about it, in the top of every episode, but truly, like truly, what death has taught me, specifically the death of my best friend, is gratitude. Like being grateful because you don't have to be here. I mean that in the heaviest possible way. I could have died in a car accident on the way here.
Mm-hmm.
I you just won't be here one day. And this moment right here, right? Like I'm talking to you, Savon, I'm talking to you, Antoinette. Like this can be the last conversation I ever had with either of you guys. So I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for the impact. I'm grateful for this conversation. And then I'm going to go in my car and I'm going to think about this and I'm going to contemplate it and I'm going to take something from it. And I'm going to take that and then parent with this experience.
Right.
And I'm going to show up in my relationship with this experience. And as much like that means the world to me, these moments, it doesn't matter how idiosyncratic they are, they mean the world to me because I'm just grateful to be able to breathe here, to talk to you guys, and then to be able to take that with me to wherever my next destination is going to be. And I try. It's a work, it's active work, but I try to always be mindful of that and to not take it for granted because it's so easy to lose sight and think you're invincible and think that your health will always last and to think that your knees are always going to work and to
Mm-hmm.
think that your back is going to be good until you see an 80-year-old man that can't stand up straight, until your grandma is not doing well. She has rheumatoid arthritis, and she just wants to cook for you, but she can't. You know, and I think about this a lot, and we've talked about this on an episode that we didn't release. But my son, when my best friend passed, we were really young. I didn't wasn't even thinking about the idea of having a child, but my best friend had a song that was really important to him, and it was a song that his father played for him, and he taught, like, you want to talk about how death teaches you. He teaches me every day, even though he's dead. And what he taught me is through a Kenny Rogers song, which is hilarious considering like where I'm from, like
Yeah.
Kenny Rogers, but it's a song called Coward of the County. And the song goes, promise me, son, not to do the things I've done, you know, basically the idea is like, don't be what I was, be better. And then the last part of the song is basically saying, you know, I'm sorry, Dad. I want it to be better, but sometimes you have to fight to be a man. That's kind of the idea. Is like I've lived life better, but there are moments where I can't. And every few months, I'll put that song on vinyl. I'll carry my son. I'll listen to it and I'll cry with joy because I get to pass this moment, this music, this experience to my child, and it's a lesson for me that my son is going to be a projection of me. And when I'm gone, part of my best friend is going to be in my son.
Mhm.
So death has taught me a lot. And one of those things is that death is not final. Death is final in that you'll never see that person,
Yeah.
but it's not final in that if you move with love and gratitude, you will be spoken about by the people that loved you the most.
I think for me, it's interesting. What it taught me was that there's some things that need to change in my life so that I feel like I'm walking more in the path that I was destined to walk. I came across a quote that says, "Death is not the greatest loss in life. The greatest loss in life is what dies inside of us when we live."
Mm.
And that shit choked me up because I was like, oh my God, Antoinette, there's so many deaths that you've experienced within your own way of being and your own hopes and dreams and joys and so many things you've stifled in order to live, quote unquote, live,
5.
survive. And so it made me think about how it made me question whether or not I'm living at all. And that sounds melodramatic because people be like, bitch, I follow you on Instagram, you living. But the day to day, social media is,
One thing.
one thing. You go to a place for 5 minutes, you take a photo, you look
Yeah.
very happy in your photo, you post it, you continue. But when you're alone at night, right? When you wake up in the morning, if you're just on this rinse and repeat kind of hamster wheel that is so unfulfilling to the point where even the things you like to do feel out of reach. Even the things you like to do, there's not gratitude behind them because it's just another thing to do. That is not living. And so a lot of it has to do with one, how I'm approaching life, how I take so much for granted, how much fear has stifled me really living, and then dealing with the shame around it, dealing with the shame that I feel when I'm listening to this woman who I see who wants to live. She did not want to go. She's skin and bones, and she wanted to live. And she did live. She willed a career for her daughter. She made it happen. She had the incredible marriage that everyone looked up to. She had so many different roles in so many different people's lives. She lived such a creative life. Everything she touched, it was creative. It was her. She's when you walk into her home, she's everywhere in it. You feel her. So it's like she lived, but she wanted to keep living. And then I thought about myself and was like, this woman would give anything for what you have available to you every day, Antoinette. Every day. What are you going to do with it, little girl? You about to be 36 years old. What are you going to do with it? You going to be a victim to it? You're going to be a victim to circumstance and capitalism and all this shit? Yes, it's real, but like you got to find the joy. You have to create it for your life. You have to be brave. You have to be courageous. What are you waiting for? You're going to wait till you're gone. And then you don't want to be on that bed wishing you could live with regrets. That's the one thing she didn't have was regret.
Beautiful.
She wanted to live because she loved life. So that really stuck with me of like, okay, you are putting yourself into an early grave because the parts of you that are most important you've buried already. And you need to dig them back up. And then what I witnessed and I started to think about was if I did go, who would be there
I
to
think
see
about
me,
that, yeah.
to see me off? Who would be there to make sure I was safe, to make sure I was comforted? Because I watched her go and I was like, whoa, the most important thing in life is relationships, the people. All this other shit, yes, she made sure her daughter got Grammys, made sure that like amazing resume this woman has, willed it. But when I heard people speak about her, because we interviewed the family, my girlfriends and I interviewed the family and we put together a video, like a 30-minute video where there's pictures of her and then interviews from the family members speaking about her under it. When I hear these stories about what she did, what impact she had on people's lives, I would just thought to myself, wow, none of this other shit matters. How our house looked, yes, it's nice. It's nice to have. It's a nice to have, right? But at the end of the day, when they really talk, I see it. You can't take any of it. You can feel comfort from someone holding your hand while you're gasping for breath. You can feel comfort when people come to visit you to talk about memories. No one was talking about the shit they bought. They were all talking about the laughs. They were all talking about the crazy times they had. It was all time. It was all moments. It was all connection and like rooted in the humanity of us.
Yeah.
And I just thought, whoa, that's it. Like the stuff you're worried about, Antoinette, is not the stuff to be worried about.
Yeah.
You have to live in a way where you are always making sure that your relationship with yourself is intact and your relationship with others is fueling you. And another thing it's taught me is how much faith I lack.
Wow. That's deep.
I lack so much faith.
That's huge.
She was not scared. She knew where she was going. She had no questions about that.
Yeah.
And I might not be on the same wavelength in terms of religion, whatever.
Yeah.
But she was not afraid of it. She only wanted to continue to be here with her family, whatever. But I watched my best friend deal with her death in a way where during the funeral, she cried of gratitude to have her. Kept saying, I'm so grateful I had her here. I'm so grateful God chose me to have her. And I thought, if my parent went, I would just be so sad they were gone. A pity party for me. Not crying because of gratitude, because God blessed me with them.
Yeah.
Perspective. But also, I'm terrified to go because I don't fucking have any faith in what comes next. I am not rooted. My feet are not 10 toes down in a driving force that I allow to guide me for real. I think I'm in control. I
Mm,
think I'm willing shit. I think I can outsmart the evils without any help.
that's oh, I fucking love this podcast because I never correlated the two. I never thought that of you, and not that there's anything wrong, but you exude such just power in your aura and your essence. I would have assumed there was a faith rooted, where
It's just it's like uh, this kind of energy,
energy.
whatever energy.
Yeah,
Like it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
my faith comes from love. Like
Hmm.
my religion is like love, people, energy, a feeling, but not anything that's like
Abrahamic.
yeah, like a practice, like a
Yeah,
there has to be for me there has to be more of a practice and I've
yeah,
incorporated that and I think when I feel most in tune with energy, God, all these things is when I'm thinking about ancestors
yeah.
and ancestral planes and I'm like, "Whoa. That's wild that like I have an altar with her on there, with my grandmother on there, thanking them, talking to them, considering my great 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 grandmother, like all of these things that I'm like, yo, these people were here. They lived so that I could be a possibility.
Yes.
And like that's got to be rooted in something deeper.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's been documented. I grew up, in the church. Um, and I'm not going to church every week. I ain't been to church in years, if I'm being
Mhm.
honest, right? But I was always given or always obtained, like I always had faith. Like, so when you say you're in control, I always have this struggle where I feel like I'm in control, but then something will happen where I have to credit it to God, right? I have to say this ain't me. Like, what is it? Sometimes I just feel so blessed, and I could identify with your friend feeling that, gratitude for having that person be her mom be her mom, and sending her off by saying, "Yeah, I'm sad, but I'm grateful that I've had that person." And I think when you feel like that, it got to stem from somewhere. Like, there's something, and I'm not trying to turn this into religion or anything. This is
No,
just my own
please.
personal. There has to be something that is just greater than, right? But then you go to school and you learn about science, and now it's conflicting, but you still have to have some kind of belief, some kind of faith outside of myself. So that's kind of how I've dealt with it. But, just going back to your point when it comes to just gratitude and the relationship with death, I take great pride in checking my phone log, my call history, and the last 12 people, the last 12 calls, it'll say mom, it'll say dad, it'll
Mhm.
say Dre, say Darius. These are my siblings, my brothers, my parents, my grandmothers, my sister. My call log is filled with my family, and it's like clockwork. I speak to them almost every day. Sometimes it could be for hours, sometimes it could be 5 minutes. And, again, nobody likes to think about it, but at some point we all got to go. Um, and
The
I
relationship.
feel like I would have that gratitude of knowing, you know, I don't take them for granted,
Mhm.
and it was a real hard switch that happened maybe when I lost a lot of my friends or lost relationships or whatever the case may be, just becoming more in tune with my mortality. I just really take the people in my life, like I don't take them for granted
Mhm.
because it's so easy. Because like Josh said, we wake up, we go work out, we go to the gym, we come home, we go to the grocery store, like, horror stories, and just to keep it within the culture, like a young Dolph, the way he was murdered. He went to the store to
Mhm.
buy his mom cookies because she likes cookies. Her favorite cookies was at this particular bakery. And I'm just going to get my mom some cookies. And I never come home. It's something as subtle as that, as small as that,
That's wild.
where I can't fathom that because there's so many times where I get a phone call from my grandmother. I messed up my ankle this past week, right? And my grandmother, she wanted to check on my ankle. I'm like, Ma, don't worry about it. Stay home. I'm fine. I'm fine. I had crutches. I was fine. I work from home. I'll be okay. It's an ankle. And she's like, you know what? I'm going to cook for you. I'm like, I know why you want to cook for me because you want a reason to come check on my ankle to make sure that I'm not lying. I promise you, I'm fine. No matter what, she made some food and she brought it over, right? Something as small as that. God forbid she didn't make it to my house.
Mhm.
Doing such a kind act out of love, out of concern, and never returning home. It's just things like that I've really been
That
blessed with.
shakes my faith.
Mm, that's those kind of moments.
That doesn't make sense to me. And that is where my faith
Mm-hmm.
gets wobbly
Sure.
of like, why? When you think about Libya
Mm.
and what happened there and how 5,000 people are gone, 5,000 more people are missing. Natural disaster.
Yeah.
How? Why? You think about Maui, like, how is this real? How is this allowed to happen, God?
Mm.
Because, like, of course, one life we're mourning. Imagine the ripple effect of all of that. Like right now, a natural disaster could happen. We're gone. To me, it's like so existential, but it's wild. I can't wrap my head around that loss of life. It's a whole life, a being.
What I like to do is,
Man.
when we kind of enter the conversation to just religion and faith, what I always like to offer, and it's something that I've tried to do when I've lost my faith or when I, don't really understand why, what works how, and when you question whatever it is that you question, whether it be the universe, God, whatever type of person, yeah, just study different religions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just read on different religions and how and why, and maybe that can educate you on what it is. I know in Christianity, it's things like that happen due to free will, right? In the Bible, God said, I completely remove myself from allowing whatever happened to happen. I'm not going to interfere with the nature, right? I'm just not. That's in that specific word. But again, like I said, I open it to saying, let's, you know, read on different religions, different faiths, because again, this is not, what we do
Yeah.
here. This is more so our own experience. So anytime I do reference that, I just want to make sure I keep that on me, because I'm not the type of person to like,
I don't.
try to
I think
push
that's a
that at all.
beautiful
So
thing. I'm not.
that's what I offer when you ask, why God, for those type of situations. And I don't have the answers, and I don't think it's right. It hurts when anything tragic happens. The first thing you do is why. The first thing you say is why, especially with death, because we can't undo it. We can't unsee it. We can't unfeel it. And the closer that it hits to home,
And
you
the
know,
impact is so
yeah,
great.
yeah. So,
Something in the last thing, you talk about gratitude all the time. And something else that it's taught me, and something else when it comes to the faith, that's why I put it in this order of like, okay, how do you get more in touch with your faith? How is it a practice? Because you can say it. I can say a whole bunch of words to God. Thank you, God, for waking me up. Thank you. But like, that's not practice. And so, something what I'm trying to do now to one, be more one, live with more gratitude, and two, live with God more present is to marvel. I've taken time every day to marvel at things, mundane things. And I'm like, wow, there's so much to marvel at that we don't, that like it just passes us by, that we do take for granted. I'm marveling in like the glory of like the sunset and the colors in the sky and how the rain like falls, and it falls to nourish the ground so that more life can be produced, and oxygen. Like that is amazing. And that shit that like, oh, it's raining, let me grab an umbrella, but like, wow, it's raining, we're being fed. Like switching that mindset and being, I think, more mindful. That's another fucking buzzword, but more mindful about that. I went outside and I like laid in the grass and felt the ground. That's another way that like I get.
Grounding.
Yes, it's very grounding.
I think that's what that's called.
Yeah, it is. But
Yeah.
like, and I remember I laid on my side and I just looked and I was like, look at all these blades of grass. This is crazy. Bro, I'm like, I need to cry. I need to like be out here and just weep. Like looking at these blades of grass in Prospect Park and being like, this is millions of blades of grass allowing a soft landing for me on this earth of like billions of people. And then it's for me. I get to have this. I get to experience this. You can't not be grateful to some kind of power in that moment.
But I think, like a fun fact, there are more trees, I think, in Canada than there are stars in this galaxy.
Wild.
Wow.
Crazy, right?
That is.
Like if you
that
think
is,
about a
yeah,
fact
yeah,
like
yeah.
that, like it's
Yeah.
you want to talk about marveling at things.
When was the last
Nature's
time
no
we
joke.
fucking marveled?
I can tell you the last time I was in Los Angeles, I was invited to like a family barbecue on the beach in Santa Monica.
Mm-hmm.
Near the pier. You guys know the pier,
Mhm.
Ferris wheel, all that beautiful, was amazing area. Um, and I tried to call an Uber to one of my friends' houses, and I couldn't get an Uber in L.A., Santa Monica. It was the strangest thing. I could not get an Uber, and I just remember walking from Santa Monica almost all the way down to Venice Beach. And along that walk, it may have been over an hour, close to an hour, whatever the walk was, but it felt like 10 minutes. And I just remember hearing the waves crash on the beach, watching them, seeing the people, seeing the transition from the busy area to like the touristy area, walking to a residential area, and just looking and seeing the sunset. It was just, I felt something higher, stronger. It was a powerful moment, and it just allowed me to be still and be in that
Present.
moment, just be present. I felt like I was, outside of my body, and I wasn't drunk, high. I had nothing in my system. There was some water, some sun, and
Yeah,
just
God.
being there. That was it.
Dead ass.
Like, and I remember saying, I hope everybody that I know, everybody that I love can feel this way at least one moment in their life. And I remember I text someone that I said, I love you, and I hope that you can feel how I'm feeling just one time in your life, because it will put things in perspective for you when we, complain about work, or when we have work to do, or traffic, right? Things that you at top of mind. The traffic is more at the top of my mind throughout the week than it is, I love this person and I may not ever see them again. And that's where the programming, like reshaping that programming and thought, is what has helped me, again, have that better understanding of death, going back to it. Because I know while I'm here, there may be a few people that I probably didn't take for granted, and that's just life. Or I did take for granted, and that's life, and I may not ever be able to repair that. But the people that I do have in my life and I do love, I really go above and beyond. And that goes back to one of the reasons why I work the way that I work, because I want to be able to give them as much as I can while I'm here. It's not so much that I like the money. And we had a conversation off air, and you used the word flashy, right, to describe me. And I don't take offense to it, but the reason why that word stuck out to me is because I don't view myself as a flashy person, but the reason that I work so hard and I really enjoy being able to have nice things and obtain nice things is because I do it for my tribe. You know what I'm saying? If I'm able to do it for me, that means I'm able to do it for the people around me. So it's more like a symbolism of, okay, I'm here, and it makes me feel good knowing, like when you came to my party, like the party and all the arrangements, like of course I have help. I have an amazing team that helps me do it, but ultimately it's my vision that brought this to life, and I'm responsible for this and these people. And again, and it's not just me, it's the group, but we're, like, I know my role in that, and I know what it's taken to get us here. So it's just small moments like that where I'm able to find those pockets of appreciation and able to have a relationship with death from a distance. And I say from a distance because I would hate to be dismissive of somebody like a Josh who has felt that and seen that in real time, in real ways, with real people that he's built relationships with. I have not been in his position, not even close to it. So I know that my view is a little bit skewed, and I almost hate talking about death with people who have experienced it so much and so often because I feel it's like survivor's remorse. It's like, I'm
Survivor's
sorry,
guilt.
guilt. I'm sorry, yeah, survivor's guilt. Like, it's a little bit of guilt there for not going through something so tragic where, you've felt that countless amount of times. Like, one of my best friends, similar to you, uncles, godfathers, grandfathers, uh, close friends, mentors. He just death, 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 and that's my close friend, and
Yeah.
he's just around all that death, and it hasn't really affected me in that way. And there's some guilt there when having these conversations. Yeah. So, and I think, the episode that we didn't release, I always just want to say thank you for always being open and transparent about that. Because, like Antoinette said, I can't imagine. Like what your friend had to do with her mom, I can't
Yeah.
imagine. And what you've gone through and seen with your best friend, your closest friend, I can't imagine. So I always want to, give my love and support to people who are strong enough to talk about it, not just go through it, but willing to talk about it because very heavy. Absolutely.
Anything else?
No, you got on the topic of faith. Faith for me is an interesting subject. I wouldn't consider myself a man of much faith.
Get it?
Enjoyed the conversation that you guys had.
Mm,
It's cool.
yeah,
Makes me feel insignificant, which allows me to be more grateful.
I can dig it. I can dig that
I
perspective.
understand that. You want to bring us up out of here?
Yeah. Well,
It's a good one.
is it? Okay, good.
I liked it.
Well, I hope that this was more questions and answers still, but I hope that it was helpful.
Therapy is.
That's kind of my steez these days. More questions than answers. I don't be knowing nothing. But yeah, I hope that this activates something in you. I hope that you, as a listener, I hope that we recognize that time is the most valuable currency. Relationships are a valuable currency. That our humanity is valuable, and that through death, there's so much life to live.
Mm.
So that's it. Go live. Go fucking live.
Y'all want a hug?
Go fucking live. Group hug at the end of this.
Y'all want a hug? I think we may need it. I'll try my best to give y'all what I give y'all at the end of all these episodes. Let us know how you feel. Again, it's heavy, and we actually do read and try to respond to some of your DMs on Instagram, on Patreon. We do have a Patreon. We're still fleshing out the content that we're going to put over there. But yeah, I would love to hear your feedback. Love to read your feedback. Sharing the episode. Hopefully it wasn't too heavy. If you're on your way to work right now, make sure you
It'll be a
got
trigger warning on
yeah,
this one.
yeah, you got some tissue.
Yeah.
I think
I
so.
talked about suicide and stuff like that.
Yeah, probably a little slight trigger warning, but that's okay. They know. They
Yeah.
know. This is season 2, all right? They ain't new to this. They true to this.
Big facts.
And with that being said, it is the Can't Afford Therapy podcast, and we will be back again next week, y'all.
Hey.
Good.